Let's talk about a political movement that for a time just blazed across America. I mean, it was like a prairie fire. They were electing mayors, congressmen, and capturing the imagination of millions. And yet, today, it's often just a tiny footnote in our history books. This is the story of the American Socialists. You know, this one phrase from their leader, Eugene Debs, really gets right to the heart of the whole thing. They weren't just looking for a pay raise. They wanted to fundamentally change the entire system. But what did he even mean by wage slavery? And why did so many people feel like they were completely trapped by it? To really get why this idea took hold, you have to picture what America was like at the turn of the 20th century. Yeah, the country was booming, but for a whole lot of people, it was a time of incredible hardship. The ground was just perfect for a radical new idea to start growing. The problems back then were all tangled up together. You had these massive corporations, they called them trusts, that controlled entire industries. This allowed a tiny, tiny number of people to get unbelievably wealthy. And at the same time, the folks actually doing the work, they were stuck with long, brutal hours in super dangerous factories and mines for pay that could barely put food on the table. The whole system just felt wildly out of balance. Okay, so with all that going on, what was the socialist solution? Well, it wasn't about small tweaks here and there. Nope. They were proposing something way bigger, a complete reimagining of American economic life. At the core of their vision was this idea of a cooperative commonwealth. Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, but the concept is actually pretty simple. Instead of a few rich guys owning all the factories, all the mines, all the farms, what if everyone owned them together, collectively? The whole point was to make sure the value that workers created actually went back to the workers, not just to the owners. This organizer, Oscar Ameringer, he boiled their whole strategy down perfectly. It's basically a two-step plan. Step 1, have the government take control of those massive monopolies. Step 2, make sure the people, the actual people, truly controlled the government. It was their direct answer to the problem of unchecked corporate power. So, who was buying into this vision? You might be picturing a very specific kind of person, but the truth is, the socialist movement was this incredibly diverse mix of people. Seriously, this was not some fringe group. The Socialist Party made it a point to welcome everybody, no matter their race, gender, or class, and that gave it this really broad appeal. It pulled in some of the most famous thinkers of the era, right alongside tens of thousands of regular, everyday working people. And what a coalition it was. You had the people right on the front lines of the industrial economy, miners, factory workers, struggling farmers. But then you also had leading intellectuals like Helen Keller and famous writers like Upton Sinclair and Jack London. This massive, wide-ranging support is exactly what gave the movement its incredible power. And all that support? Well, it started to translate into actual political power. For a while there, it really seemed like the movement was unstoppable, moving past just debates and actually winning elections. This quote from a socialist newspaper editor, wow. It just perfectly captures the feeling of the time. Can you imagine that? Believing that your movement was the future, that it was spreading so fast and so wide that literally nothing could stand in its way? And you know what? For a little while, the numbers really backed that feeling up. By 1913, the Socialist Party had 150,000 official dues-paying members. That is a seriously organized and motivated base of people. And that base got results. They elected over 1,000 candidates across the country. We're talking about socialist mayors in cities all over, from Berkeley, California to Schenectady, New York. They even elected 2 members to the U.S. Congress. The movement really hit its peak on the national stage in the 1912 presidential election. Eugene Debs, running as the socialist candidate, pulled in nearly 1 million votes. That was 6% of the total vote, which is just a stunning number for a third party. It was a clear sign that socialism was a major force in American politics. But if the movement was this raging prairie fire, why isn't America a socialist country today? That flame that burned so brightly, it started to flicker. And it wasn't just one thing that put it out. It was more like a perfect storm of powerful forces working against it. So what happened? Well, first off, some of their most popular ideas got co-opted by more mainstream progressive reformers, which kind of took the wind out of their sails. Second, the party was full of internal disagreements on tactics and ideology. Third, they really struggled to convince most people that socialism was compatible with American values. Their opponents were really successful at painting it as a threat. And finally, and this is a huge one, the party faced intense government oppression, especially during World War I, with censorship and arrests. So the Socialist Party of America pretty much collapsed. But did all those ideas, all that energy just vanish? Not at all. Its legacy is actually way more complicated and frankly more interesting than that. Here's the crucial thing to remember. The socialists weren't just inventing this frustration out of thin air. They were tapping into this really deep anger that millions of Americans felt, this belief that the whole system was rigged against them. And that feeling, it didn't just go away when the party did. So in the end, yeah, the party itself faded away, but its influence absolutely lived on. The energy, the ideas about economic justice, the organizing tactics, all of that filtered out and became a part of the American political conversation for decades to come. Which kind of leaves us with a final thought, right? When you hear debates today about wealth inequality, about corporate power, about the rights of workers, how much of that is really an echo of this nearly forgotten movement? How do the questions those American socialists raised a century ago continue to pop up and shape our world right now?